Parents often agree with an open-minded and empathetic approach to interacting with children, but then struggle with what to say or how to communicate that using appropriate language. This is especially true when stepping into emotionally charged, awkward, or otherwise uncomfortable topics. This is the beginning of a series of under 5-minute videos that will provide recommendations and language so that you can feel equipped and capable when broaching and exploring topics with kids that many parents find challenging. In this first video, I'm going to discuss the importance of the language that we use during conversations with our kids, and I'm going to make a case for how that language impacts our ability to influence our children. I'm also going to strive to provide you with hope and confidence as you delve into exploring with kids some common, uncomfortable topics that we're going to address in future videos. Our language needs to be intentional, needs to be deliberate. Even in the title of this series, I emphasize that we're talking with children rather than talking to children, and that's because semantics is important. We communicate volumes through our word choices and also through what we choose not to say in our nonverbals. The way that we talk about topics with kids communicates as much to them as the content of what we are saying. Think of a time recently when someone said something to you, but you interpreted something either in addition to or maybe even counter to what they were saying. It's usually because you read some meaning in their tone, their particular word choices, what they said or didn't say, what they chose to focus on in the conversation. I want you to pay attention to these areas when you're in conversation with your kids. Notice how your children are perceiving what you say and how you say it. Try to focus on that instead of defending yourself or justifying the words that you used. I've had so many conversations about intent versus impact. You can continue to debate with others about what you meant during a heated conversation, but the reality is that the impact of what was said or what happened deserves far greater attention. And this is especially true when exploring what's happening in interactions with your children. I use the term interaction very intentionally because it implies an interplay. There's an impact that each participant has on the other. There's a dynamic between different communicators. Change is possible and it's likely as the input from one affects the other. That's different even than an exchange or a trade. We have these conversations where what one person says or does doesn't affect or change the other. One might offer more or less in terms of input, but the input itself is stagnant, it's separate, it's impactless, and it's unimpacted by the other's words or actions. In this series, we're going to focus on having interactions with our kids in every day as well as these more challenging conversations. So be ready because you're possibly going to be affected by what your kid has to say. As adults, we know that we have much to impart. We have the wisdom, the knowledge, and the know-how, and our desires to share that wisdom with our children, maybe to correct their faulty thinking or round out their incomplete knowledge. When I think about this, what comes to mind is the Mother Knows Best song from the movie Tangled. And if you haven't watched it recently, I would encourage you to pause this video and go check out a clip online. When we assume that we know best, we're not open to hearing our children's input, and we're less receptive to hearing what our children do try to share. And you get this in the video when Rapunzel is trying to interject with the word "but." When we believe that we know best, we communicate and we assume that we don't need to hear our children explain their own feelings or experiences because we already know. But the truth is that we cannot know their inner workings unless we allow them to share their perceptions, their experiences, and their emotions, unless we consider and we accept that their input is real and true. This is where things can get really tricky because we want to impart that wisdom, and then as parents, we also desire to connect with our kids, to build meaningful relationships that I truly believe are required in order for us to have the influence over them that we desire to have. Approaching children as the all-knowing authority can provide a sense of security and protection, especially when they're young. I picture He-Man standing in front of Grayskull, holding his sword and screaming, "I have the power!" But approaching kids in this way can also make it really difficult for children to feel like they can share openly. Conversations are not interactive, and they sense that quickly. They don't view us as being willing or even interested in hearing their perceptions or their experiences. So what good is all of our wisdom related to their experiences if it's not even founded on the data that can only come from them? How useful are our efforts to influence our kids if they view our exchanges as one-way lectures or just shows of power and authority? Whether or not you believe that's an effective way to communicate, it's simply not effective in truly influencing or building trust with our children. Trust is different than obedience, and influence is different than control. Trust and the ability to influence are what most parents deeply desire, especially as our kids grow older and they gain independence. So we have to approach every conversation with intentionality. This series will be focused on approaching and exploring different topics alongside kids, intentionally, interactively, and influentially. During each 5-ish minute video, you're going to receive suggestions for language that you can use to broach conversations. So how to introduce topics that might feel awkward, uncomfortable, or even seem taboo in some family contexts. You'll also receive suggestions for language that you can use to open the conversations up once they've been introduced. Ways that you can communicate your openness to hearing and seriously considering your children's input. How you can encourage exploring together each topic as well as your child's experiences and emotions surrounding it. And then lastly, you'll receive tips for responding to what children share during each conversation. And that includes how you can validate your child's experiences and input without condoning what may, at times, to you seem inappropriate or unwise. Healthy responses are essential for ensuring engagement in future conversations, and they're also important for keeping the conversation open in the moment, despite each person's discomfort talking about challenging topics. New videos are going to be uploaded to this channel regularly, so check in every couple of weeks, or you can subscribe and opt for notifications so that you're alerted whenever new content is available. My name is Claire White, and I'm really looking forward to joining you in this journey of maintaining healthy communication with your children. I have some additional parenting and communication resources available on my website, and also through my website, you're welcome to reach out directly if you have any specific questions.